bigger boat.
I got you!
Hey guys, welcome back to Like to Talk. I'm Matt, and today we're going to be talking about shark movies. Now, before we talk shark movies, if you're into 4K reviews, movie reviews, TV show reviews, some video game reviews, and some tech reviews along the way, why don't you guys hit that subscribe button and check us out. So, I want to start by saying I am a huge fan of Jaws, and I love all shark movies and monster movies alike. And I figured it's summertime, so let's do a whole compilation of all the best and maybe not so best shark movies that are out there. So I figured I'm gonna do a top 8, but I think I just watched 16 or 17 different shark movies, and I kind of sorted them by the ones I enjoyed the most. And the rules that I kind of had were, it had to be mainly about a shark. So like there is some shark movies that aren't exactly revolving around a shark, you know, like a shark plays a part in it, but it's not like the main focus, the main plot. So that's why I wanted to do my quick one, get this one out of the way as an honorable mention, was the Meg. Now, I mean, looking at the cover, and it's about the Megalodon. However, it's more of like an action rescue movie, and they discover that there's a Megalodon, and I mean, you could argue this is definitely a shark movie because it's about sharks, but it's not like Jaws, and it's not like Open Water where they're fighting a shark the whole time and they're helpless. They're not always helpless. They're on big boats. They're on these. It's like an over-the-water research facility, but surprisingly, like it looks like a joke, but this movie was actually pretty good. Jason Statham, Dwight Schrute from The Office was in this, and it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. Actually, this was the last one I watched because I've seen this before. There was some other ones that I haven't seen yet that I wanted to see before this, and I actually really enjoyed this. And this is the 4K Steelbook version, so you get the 4K and the Blu-ray. But this looked really great. You know, it's a modern movie put on 4K. It's got a Dolby Atmos track, so this is my honorable mention. And I think this is a must-see for any shark movie fan. But now we're going to talk the great 8 shark movies. At number 8, I have The Reef. Now, I've never seen this one before. I just watched it for the first time, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. There's not too many people from the cast that I recognize. It came out in 2010, so it's, 11 years old now. And I don't know if this made it to theaters. This might have been like a direct-to-DVD type deal. But it was pretty good. You know, their ship they go sailing, and their ship gets overturned, and they're kind of stranded on the ship, so some of them decide to swim for land, and some decide to stay on the ship. And, you know, it's a shark movie, so what do you think happens? So this one was a fun ride. I did enjoy it, and I think the Blu-ray was pretty cheap. It was a good-looking Blu-ray. You know, nothing special on the inside, just the Blu-ray disc. And I think this was a pretty decent movie. It's definitely one to check out if you're a fan of shark movies. At number 7, we have The Shallows with Blake Lively. Now, again, I never saw this one either. And I'm kind of upset that I didn't see this because this was actually really good. Now, this came out in 2016. I believe this was in theaters. I'm not 100% sure. But this one was really good. So, quick story, her mother passed away, and she was always talking about this beach to her daughter, and she wanted to go to this beach finally to see it because her mother was always talking about it. So she goes there, she's surfing, she's good at surfing. So she's surfing with a couple locals, and they go in, she goes one more wave, which is a rule in like any sport. You never say one more run, one more anything. That's it. When everyone starts going in, you go into. But we wouldn't have a movie if she didn't do one more wave. So she has one more wave, and a shark knocks her off the board mid-wave, and she's not far from land. Like, she could see the beach, she could see the locals coming out of the water, getting into their car and going away, and she's kind of stranded on this little rock out in the ocean, and she's only a couple hundred yards off the shore, but she's got a little bit of blood, so now there's blood in the water, and there's a shark just hanging out, and she ends up stuck on this rock for like 2 days, and there's a seagull that hangs out on the rock with her, and it's basically just her versus this shark, and she's stuck in the water for a very long time, no food, no water, and it's very interesting, and she does end up surviving, spoilers, but it was definitely a ride, and something I wouldn't want to do. But yeah, for a shark movie, this was definitely the definition of a shark movie, and I think Blake Lively, because she's not really acting with anybody else, she's by herself, and she really sold it. I think she did a fantastic job in this movie, and this is definitely one to check out. Also, the 4K on this was very nice. This was a good 4K disc. Any 4K any movie that has water and stuff in it, beautiful. It's beautiful on the screen. That nice blue, and I love these types of movies. I love Forgetting Sarah Marshall is a fantastic Blu-ray because they're in Hawaii. I just love the blue water and all that, and just looks great on our OLED. But yep, The Shallows was fantastic, and that is my number 7 pick. Alright, at number 6. Now this one hurts me a little bit, because if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, before I started watching all these shark movies, this would have ranked much higher on the list. And that movie is Deep Blue Sea. I think it's nostalgia that holds this movie so high, because I haven't seen this in a pretty long time, and after watching it this time, I was like, alright, some of that CGI just does not hold up too well, and it really does upset me, because I loved this movie as a kid, and this was like my number 2 shark movie next to Jaws, and it just something about it, this viewing didn't really sit well with me. Now, there is sequels to the Deep Blue Seas, and we'll get into that later because they are not on this list. But I think this is the first one, and this one had a great cast. Samuel Jackson was a big name. LL Cool J was in this. Mike Rappaport. The cast on this one, I think, is what spreads it apart from the Deep Blue Sea 2 and 3, which are not great movies. 2 was pretty terrible. 3 was it was okay at best. The one girl from Lost was in it, and that was like the only thing I really recognized as far as actors. But these don't watch these. These aren't great. These were directed to DVDs. This one's okay. This one was not great at all. But back to Deep Blue Sea, Part 1. This was a great movie, but the CGI, I think, is what holds it back. So now they are genetically enhancing these sharks. They have this compound that I think they stated that they bought it from the Nazis or something like that, or it used to be a Nazi research facility, and they turned it into a marine biology research facility, and they have cages, and they are doing these research and testing on these sharks to genetically enhance them so they are much smarter than an average shark. So they start learning, they figure out how to get out, and it just wreaks havoc. The place floods out, it explodes on the top level. It's an action movie. It's a great movie, but I think the CGI is what really took me out of it this time, and it's a shame because I really did like this movie a lot growing up. But it's still in the top 8. It's still a good movie. You should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Alright, at number 5 we have Jaws 3. Now, Jaws 3, some people don't like this movie, and I agreed to an extent. But after viewing it this time, I actually really enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would, or more than I thought I did, because it wasn't my favorite of the Jaws movies, but I think it's still a good movie. Now, this movie is from 1983, and I have a soft spot for 80s movies. I really love 80s movies. I love the way they're filmed. I just love seeing that era on film on the screen. And I think the only negative I have to say about this movie is, again, the CGI. This is very, very, very early CGI. And there's a couple scenes where, so again, this is, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of like a SeaWorld type amusement park, and they have these underwater hallways, and there is like all these observation tunnels and stuff that you can walk through, and then they do these outside shots of the facility, and then like this yellow submarine that they have. It's just, you can tell it's terrible CGI, but it's 1983. What do you expect? Now, I think the big downfall for this movie was, this is around the time where 3D was like the new thing, and everyone was trying to do 3D. They had Friday the 13th 3D, and this was Jaws 3D. So it had a bunch of those corny 3D shots where they had the 3D camera, so they were taking advantage of it. And there's some corny shots in this movie. We'll leave it at that. Dennis Quaid in this movie. This is probably my favorite Dennis Quaid movie, surprisingly. But I really enjoyed this. The story, it's, you know, with the shark movies, you don't need an elaborate story for them to work. So you have the original Jaws was Martin Brody, and his kids were all young. So now his oldest son, Michael, he's an adult, and he's running SeaWorld amusement park that they have. And so him and Randy Quaid, and they go on this adventure, and the sharks break in, and there's dolphins that protect it's a good movie. You know, it's in 1983, it's an 80s movie, it's 3D, so there's some corny shots, there's some terrible CGI, the story's okay, but overall, great shark movie. I really enjoyed myself with this one, surprisingly, because I thought this one would be torture, because I remember not liking Jaws 3 much, but I was also younger at the time when I seen it. But now I really appreciate what they did here, and I had a great time with this. Also, this is actually a pretty good looking Blu-ray for what it is, you know, I mean, there's some bad looking Blu-rays out there, and this isn't one of them. I was pleasantly surprised with the picture quality on this disc. Alright, at number 4 we have Jaws 2. Now, again, I'm a huge Jaws fan. I absolutely love Jaws. I don't know if it's just in my DNA, because Jaws is my father's favorite movie. So I just grew up watching Jaws on repeat all the time. If it came on the TV, you could never shut it off. And I enjoyed the movie myself. So, Jaws 2. I want to start off by saying I actually think I might enjoy Jaws 3 more than Jaws 2, but as a shark movie, because that's what we're talking about, like, that's the main focus. I think Jaws 2 is a better shark movie versus Jaws 3. So this one continues the story of Jaws 1. So Roy Schneider is Martin Brody. He's back in this, and his kids are a little bit older. They go out sailing, and there's a couple boats with him and his friends, and they get overturned, they get attacked by the shark, and they're out by this lighthouse island or something like that. And now Martin Brody, he's out on the water and stuff more often now. He's not as afraid after the first one. So now he goes out on the boat, and he goes to rescue them from the shark. There's a helicopter crash, and it's a good movie. It's not my favorite. I think I actually would rather watch Jaws 3 over Jaws 2, but as far as a shark movie, I think Jaws 2 serves that focus better. This has a lot of the returning cast members, and again, it's a direct continuation to Jaws 1. Now, nothing can touch the first one, obviously, but this movie was not bad, you know, it did pretty well. And again, it's a great movie. I still watch it probably every other year. I watch Jaws every year. I'll watch this every other year, and this is a good one. I really did enjoy it. And the Blu-ray disc itself, this is, again, another Blu-ray disc. Universal did a pretty good job with these releases. Alright, now we are getting into the top 3. Now, I also want to state that I didn't watch every shark movie that exists. I grabbed about 20 or 25 of the ones that I really thought looked good. I didn't buy Sharknado, I didn't buy any of those crazy ones because those are just way too over the top. These are just to the core shark movies. So at number 3 we have Great White. Now this movie was from 2020, and this looks like it was on Shudder, which is one of the only streaming services I do not have. I still haven't checked out Shudder. I have every other streaming service, plus a whole wall of these Blu-rays, so it's kind of hard to justify to get another one. But I'm so glad that they put this out on Blu-ray, because I picked this up only because of the price point. I was walking through Best Buy, I was just checking out what was there, and this was on sale for like $8. And I said, you know what? I'm a sucker for shark movies. Let me grab it. I watched it, and I had a great time. I was very surprised with this, and I thought it was a great movie. Obviously, I put it at number 3. So again, this is a movie where I don't recognize any of the actors and actresses, but I think they did a great job. You know, no one seemed like a bad actor. I think it was very selling, and it says it's from the executive producers of 47 Meters Down, which those movies I did not really like. The second one was okay. The first one, not really a fan. But I think they did a great job with this movie. A couple owns like an old airplane, and they live on some tropical island, and they charter these flights for, like, that's their job, you know. They get money for flying people over for observation and just like a little tour of the island and stuff like that. So an Asian couple charters them, and they go on a ride. They want to land on this island, and they ended up finding a body that was washed up on shore that was attacked by a shark. And it's a seaplane, by the way. So they land in the water. Shark movie. What do you think happens? And it just takes off from there. So they end up in a life raft, and they're stuck out in the middle of the ocean. The current is taking them away from land, obviously, because that's how all these movies work. And it was a great ride, you know. It starts with a bunch of people, and that number shrinks, obviously. And it was quite the enjoyable movie. You know, all these movies are mostly quick 90-minute movies. You're in and you're out, and that's no exception here. This was a great movie. I had a great time with it. And RLJE, I'm starting to really like what they do, because they put out a lot of these cheaper movies, and I like the slipcovers that come with it. The disc looks great. It was a great Blu-ray. It sounded awesome, looked great on the TV. I had a great time with this. This was well worth the $8 that I paid for it. You should definitely check it out if you're a shark fan. Alright, now at number 2, this one was quite a surprise to me, because I never seen this movie. It looked pretty corny from just the cover, and it was a cheap movie. I picked it up on Amazon when I said, hey John, I'm gonna do a shark video, and I want to round up a bunch of movies. So I went on Amazon and I ordered a handful, and this one was only a couple bucks, but I saw it was from the directors of Final Destination, and it did not look like it was gonna be a good movie, but I honestly enjoyed the hell out of this, and it was called Shark Night. Now this movie is from 2011, and it's about a bunch of college kids. They go to it's like a bayou / lake on an island, and some rich girl has this big resort house, and they go party for the weekend, and what do you think happens? There's a shark in the lake. I'm not going to tell you how it gets there, because I want you to watch this movie, because if you like shark movies at all, you'll enjoy this movie. Now this movie, actually, it's not, I don't know how to really dance around telling you this without spoiling it. So it's not just a shark movie. It's not crazy over the top. There's no like sci-fi elements or anything like that. But without spoiling it, and, you know, it is from 2011, but again, I want you to watch this one, so I don't want to spoil too much. But it was a great time. I had a blast watching this, and I was pleasantly surprised. I did not think I was going to enjoy this one at all, but it was really good. And I was also very excited to see, I forget the actor's name, but he played JP in Grandma's Boy, the nerd, the programmer, and he was in this movie, and he did a great job. And there was also the sheriff was the guy who played Harvey something in Gotham. He was in that TV show. That's where I recognized him from, and he's been in a couple other movies that I've been seeing around, and I like both of them. Plus, everyone else on the cast did a fantastic job. I think this was a great movie, and I really enjoyed it. And it's also, I just want to say, it was such a shame because it looked like these kids were going to have a great weekend. It was a beautiful house. They had jet skis out on the lake. They were going to party. It looked like a great time. It was someplace I would want to go, out on a nice big lake, and it looked like a great time. And this was a really great movie. It had definitely a twist at the end, which you didn't exactly see coming right away, at least. We'll say that. Some people catch on to this stuff pretty quick. But again, you should 100% check this one out. It's not an expensive Blu-ray. And the Blu-ray itself looked great, sounded great, and I'm super glad that I have this in my collection. Before we get to number one, I just wanted to do a couple more honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut for good reason. Now I have two piles here. So the first pile was my, okay, maybe it might make the cut, but let me finish all the movies first. And the only ones in that pile that are left over next to the Meg, because I put that first because I wanted to put that in the top 8, but I couldn't knock out any of the other ones. But the two that I would have put in that I did enjoy but didn't make my top 8 would be the 47 meters down and 47 meters down uncaged. Now this one was okay. This is with the two girls in the cage, and it gets disconnected from the boat. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and that's terrifying. You know, you're stuck in a cage way deep into the ocean. You get that, it's called the bends. So if you go too deep too fast and then you ascend too deep too fast, it screws with your head. And that was something they really beat you over the head with in this movie. But again, it's terrifying. And then, so not only are you stuck on the bottom of the ocean floor, you have these great big sharks swimming around waiting for you to come out of that cage. So it's, do you wait until you're out of air in the cage and suffocate, or do you take your chances and try to swim up to the surface? But you can't swim as fast as you can because you'll get the bends, and they beat you over the head with that. And that was really kind of took me out of it. And then I did not really love the ending in this movie. It was not well executed. I would say the first 3/4 of this movie were pretty good, but the ending, not so great. And then there was a sequel, Uncaged, and this movie surprisingly was pretty good. I did enjoy myself with this one. It's a bit unbelievable, again, but that's what movies are for. They're fantasy most of the time. Sometimes, well, those are the ones I like, but it gives us a chance to escape and see something else on the screen, and that's what they did here. So this is basically nothing to do with the first one. It's a group of girls, and they live on some island where there's some underwater village that was just discovered. Her father's a diver, and they're working down in this underwater caves and village system, and it's like the Mayans or something like that, that's never been seen by man. So they say, hey, let's go check it out. They're swimming in some secret lake that no one can ever find. Only the locals know about it. No one knows they're there. Or that's how they could possibly not be rescued, because no one knows they're there, that they'd even be in trouble. So they go to this thing. They're swimming in nice, beautiful blue water, tropical rainforest. It's beautiful scenery. And they say, hey, let's throw on this scuba gear that's conveniently left on this floating raft. They go down into the caverns, and then they find all these fish and a great white shark that has been in these tunnels underground with no sunlight for many years. So now not only are they dangerous, but they can see in the dark and they don't need light, and then they run out of light and it's a whole thing, and but not a bad movie. I did enjoy it for the most part. I liked it better than the first one. It made more sense. It was more believable. Didn't quite make the cut, but it was an okay movie to watch. I would check it out if you're a fan of shark movies. So those were the movies that could have made the cut but didn't quite make it because the other ones edged them out. Now, I have 3 more here that I would never wish upon anybody to watch these movies because they were not good at all. And we'll start with Jaws the Revenge, which is Jaws 4. So now, Jaws the Revenge is not a good movie. This was just a cash grab. Michael Caine is in this movie, and we know him now that he's done all the movies with Christopher Nolan. He was good in this movie. You know, it's not the actor, it's the script. So, well, sometimes. Well, in this case, it's the script, not the actor. And this movie was this was a trash fire. This was not good. And it pains me to say because it's got the Jaws name on it, and Lorraine Gary, who's been Martin Brody's wife through all of the movies, she comes back to reprise her role. I guess I've never seen her in any other movies. I'm sure she's done other movies, but I've only seen her in the Jaws movies. So I'm assuming this was just a cash grab for her. But this was just not a good movie because the first son gets eaten. Now all of them get eaten by a shark. She's the last one, so she goes to kill the shark that was not even the shark that killed her son. It's just, don't watch this. Just watch Jaws 1, 2, and 3. Skip this one for sure. And speaking of Jaws, I couldn't do a shark video without talking Cruel Jaws. Now, this movie, this was kind of new to me. I found this from Jeff over at Films at Home, and this is an Italian film. This is not exactly a foreign film, but I believe it's an Italian director, and it's a blatant ripoff of just all shark movies together. Some countries call this Jaws 5, not here. It's just Cruel Jaws, and it's just, oh my god, it's like a B movie, really. The acting is terrible. There's scenes from random movies just clipped and spliced together. It's just, this is not good. Don't watch this. I mean, if you want to laugh and just watch a terrible movie, go for it. It's got like a cult following, which is weird because it's just not a good movie, in my opinion. This is the first time I've ever seen it, so I didn't have a good time with this. It was quite hard to get through, in my opinion. And I could watch some bad movies, but this one just didn't do it for me. It is cool that there is a Blu-ray release. This is kind of hard to find, apparently, so that's why I grabbed it at the time. And this is the first time I saw it. It's just, not great. But, you know, I had to put it in the video because we're talking shark movies. And the last one in the bad movie section would be The Requiem. Now, this movie I hated. This is from 2022. Now, if you watch this movie and you didn't know it's from 2022, you would not think it's from 2022 based on that CGI, because the CGI on this movie was dog shit awful. It looked horrendous. My grandmother can probably play on a computer and figure out how to make CGI look better than they did. I don't know how someone let this get released. The actors in it, I don't know. They just had no chemistry. It's supposed to be a married couple. They're going through. The lady has a miscarriage, so she's addicted to social media for some reason, and they go on some tropical vacation on a floating bungalow. There's a storm. They get called in the middle of the night to say, "Hey, there's a storm coming. Would you like to relocate?" The asshole husband says, "No, we're good." So they go back to sleep, and then they wake up. There's a storm coming. The thing detaches because, of course, they're the one on the end, and then it just goes out to sea and floats. I hated this movie. It was... So please, don't watch this movie. This had to be the worst of the bunch. It was absolutely terrible. I hated everything about it. There wasn't even one section of the movie where I could say it was good. The story was stupid. The characters had no chemistry together. The CGI was awful. This was... Stay away from this. And this is embarrassing that a movie can come out in 2022 looking this bad, and I don't know how someone let this get past quality control and someone said, hey, this is a great movie. And a good idea, put this one on the shelves. So, do not watch this one. And finally, our number one is Jaws. And I don't think anybody had any doubt that this wouldn't be number one, and there's no movie that can even come close to Jaws. And I think we've talked about Jaws, depending on when this video comes out. We've been talking about Jaws a lot in a couple previous videos, and for good reason, because this is a fantastic movie. This is an iconic movie. This is a big part of our culture. This is a big part of history. This is one of the best movies ever made. This is Steven Spielberg and John Williams together for the first time. That score is fantastic. This is just one of the greatest movies. It's in my top 5. It cannot be touched. This is such a great movie, and it's a shark movie, and that's it. You know, I mean, it's got an awesome story. It's the practical effects, because there's no CGI in this movie. There's some scenes that were filmed in like Australia or something that had nothing to do with Steven Spielberg. I think he might have bought the rights or just used them, like the shark on top of the cage and some scenes with the shark swimming through the water. Those were all real sharks, but the other stuff was a mechanical shark they called Bruce, and this is just such a fantastic movie. The way they build tension with just John Williams' score, and you see the barrels floating in the water, and you don't even see the shark that much in this movie, and it's about a shark, you know, it just so perfectly done, so well done. There's people that seen this movie in theaters in the 70s and haven't been in the water since, just because it's that scary, it's that real. This is the perfect movie, 10 out of 10. Hands down, the best shark movie ever made. And I don't think we would have got half the other shark movies, if any, if it wasn't for Jaws. So this is definitely easily the number one, and this is the 4K release that I'll talk a little bit about, just because this is just such a great package by Universal. So you got the lenticular lens cover, which is awesome. This nice little booklet inside, which is so cool, especially as a huge Jaws fan and a collector. It's got all different movie posters, parts of the screenplay, the script, by facts about the actors. Spielberg wrote a piece. Just such a really cool booklet in there that they included to have. And then you get the 4K, you get the Blu-ray, and it's just such a great package. This is one of my favorite 4Ks on my shelf, and one of my favorite movies of all time. So this is the best way to watch Jaws, hands down, and it's the best shark movie, hands down. So that's gonna wrap it up for our shark video. I hope you guys liked it. Did I leave out any? Because I know there's Sharknado, there's a couple other ones that I didn't talk about, that I just didn't watch. These are just the ones that I personally own, and I checked out a few that I haven't seen before. I couldn't watch 100 movies for this, but out of the 20-something movies that I talked about, those were my 8 that I would put in my list. I told you some ones I didn't like, some ones I really did like. So which ones should I watch? Because as you can see from my top 8, that's my taste in shark movies. So which ones would you guys recommend me checking out? I'd love to hear some more movies to watch, because I'm a huge fan of the shark movies. I want to check out some more, so drop them down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like, because that's the best way you can help us out, and consider subscribing, because that can also help us out and help build our community. So with that being said, I just want to say I made it through this whole entire video without quoting Jaws once, without saying I think we need a bigger boat. But hey, just want to say thanks again, and have a great day, guys.